In today's video, we're going to be painting up a Gnoll archer from Reaper Miniatures. Okay, so what we're going to do first with this Gnoll archer is we're going to start off with some gunmetal here, and we're going to use this to paint on the Gnoll archer's chest. He has sort of some chainmail t-shirt on, so we want to get that in there with our gunmetal. But don't forget as well, since this is a Reaper Bones miniature, I always like to make sure I just give it a quick wash with some soapy water and let it dry just before I start painting the miniature, just to make it a little bit easier to paint. So one other quick thing I forgot to mention here too is he also has just a couple little pieces of armor just on him, so I also painted those up in the gunmetal. But now we're going to move on with some uniform grey. I'm going to use the uniform grey to paint up all the Gnoll's fur. So just looking for a good spot here. So we want to paint just everywhere we can see where the fur is. Now I'm not going to be painting this mohawk that the Gnoll has on his head, because I'm going to be coming back in with a different colour to paint that. So just getting over now with the Reaper Bones, since I don't have any primer on this, it's going to take just a couple of coats to really get all that paint on there, but it's not too hard a thing to worry about. If you want to make it a bit easier, you could prime this miniature, but I don't worry about priming Reaper Bones too much, as it's just easy just to paint on them. So once we have all the fur all painted up and dry and looking good, what we want to do is we want to come in now with a fur brown. I'm going to use this fur brown to paint up a few areas of fur we have on here. So I'm going to use the fur brown to paint up this skirt, I guess you would call it, that the Gnoll's got on him. So we just want to put on some nice coats onto that. Now it's starting to slip off a bit, as you can see here, but that's alright. What you want to do is just wait for it to slowly build up, and then you'll be able to push it around. It's just a thing that I find can be a bit of a problem when you don't prime bones. But also, don't forget to paint up the quiver on the Gnoll archer's back as well. So once we've done all that fur brown, what we're going to do now is we're going to come in with an ash grey. And what we're going to do with the ash grey is we're actually going to dry brush it on all our Gnoll's fur. So dry brushing, of course, you want to get as much paint on your brush as you can. Grab a paper towel and then wipe as much of that as you can off to brush over top of our area here that we've got, which is just the Gnoll's fur. Then with all that dry brushing done, see we've got some pretty good different tones on his skin. We're going to come in with a leather brown. I'm going to use the leather brown to paint up all the straps and banding, that the Gnoll has all over him. So he's got just a couple on his chest here, which is covering over his chainmail shirt. He's got just a couple on his hands, and don't forget about just underneath on his chest here, holding all his gear up. So just going over nicely. I grabbed a slightly smaller brush to do this as well, since there's just a little bit of detail, and I want to try and avoid painting over everything I've already painted so far. So you just want to make sure you also get on the back as well. So once we have all those leather straps all painted up and dry, what we're going to do is we're going to come in with a monster brown now, and I'm going to be using this to paint in the shafts of the arrow in the quiver. So I want to use that to paint in there, giving it a bit of colour. And we also want to use it to paint up one of the packs or things you want on his back. So I've done one in the leather brown already, as you can see, but I'm also going to be just picking one at random. I might just go here with the sheath for the sword and painting that in with the monster brown, and then later on I'll come back in with another brown when I use another brown to vary all those up. Then once all that's dry, we're going to come in now using dirt spatter. I'm going to be using the dirt spatter to paint in the Gnoll archer's bow. So just getting a good layer of paint here onto his bow. So as well as the bow, I'll also be painting up one of the packs that the Gnoll archer has on him as well, just so we've got those varied colours on the browns and stuff on his back. Like I said before, Just keeping them varied up can make it look a lot nicer than having it all sort of muddied all up in one colour. So there's me just quickly painting up the pack that the Gnoll has on his belt. So once all that's dry, what we're going to do now is we're going to come in with necromancer cloak. I'm going to be using this to paint the Gnoll archer's fur on his head, or his mohawk, as I'm just calling it, because it looks like a pretty cool mohawk for the Gnoll. But we're going to use the necromancer cloak to paint all this up. And also he has just a little bit of tuft of fur on his tail as well, just at the end of it. So I'm also going to be painting that up in the necromancer's cloak as well, just to give it a little bit of variation in there. Then once you've done that, what I'm also going to do with the necromancer's cloak is I'm going to be just painting on some dots onto the neck of the Gnoll, because I noticed that a lot of the Gnoll miniatures, or even in the artwork of the Gnolls and on hyenas themselves, which the Gnolls are based on, they all have little dots on their necks. So I want to imitate that as well, and it'll really bring out that detail to the next level, which I want to really try and do with this miniature, because it's so cool looking. So just adding those dots, I think, will add in a nice detail onto it. So now with those dots done, this is going to be good practice for our next lesson, which is coming in here now with the matte white. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be painting in the eyes of the Gnoll. So the Gnoll's eyes are always seem to be just like really glowing bright white. So I'm just grabbing a really thin brush with just a dot of paint on there, and I'm just dotting it on. But don't worry about it if you mess it up. You can, once you've dotted it on, you can always come back with our original fur color and just paint around those areas. Then now, with all the eyes painted up, what we're going to do is we're going to come in now with a matte black. And what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be giving a quick touch of paint onto the nose, and we're also going to be painting the inside of the Gnoll's ear. So just being careful and steady with your brush and just painting inside there, trying to leave just a little lip around the edge of the ear so it looks realistic. It's quite difficult to do. You may need to hold your miniature in a funny angle like I am here, just to get the right place in there, so you can get the tip in there to really get a good angle. So don't be afraid to move the miniature around. And if you do go over just a little bit too far, you can always come back with our grey colour and just paint around the areas that we've made a little bit of a mistake on there. But it came out pretty good. And don't forget, also with the black, we also want to come in with the fine brush, and we just want to paint on the Gnoll's little toes here, or his claws I should say, on the bottom of his feet. So don't forget about those as well when you're doing this. Then once you've done all that black, what we're going to do is we're going to come in with a castle grey now, and we're just going to use this castle grey just to paint up the base of the miniature. So looking pretty good there, just a nice quick paint job over the whole thing with castle grey, just making sure you cover over all the cracks and just trying to avoid those parts on the Gnoll we've already painted up. So now with that done, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to washing the miniature. So we're going to use some Agrax Earth Shade by Citadel, and we're going to use this to paint over our Gnoll archer bow, as well as I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but I also painted, when we were doing the eye, I also painted with the matte white over the little bandings on the Gnoll archer's bow, and I also painted up just the ends of the feathers of the arrows as well on his back. So I can't remember if I did that or not, but I thought I'd better tell you now. So of course we were just going over all the bits of leather, as well as the quiver. So just anything pretty much that we've done that's brown is what we're going to use the Agrax Earth Shade for, giving it a nice coat over the whole lot. So once that's complete, what we're going to do now is we're going to come in with the nuln oil, which is also by Citadel and is also a wash, and we want to use that to cover over the entirety of the rest of the Gnoll, so that includes using it over the chainmail. We want to use it all over the fur, just pretty much every piece we haven't used with that we already did previously with the agrax earthshade. We want to use it to cover up the rest of the Gnoll. That also includes the base on the bottom that we did with the castle grey. We also want to do that in the nuln oil as well, to really bring out all that detail, because the Gnoll has a lot of the fur detail. That nuln oil is really going to bring out pretty much all those individual like hairs it has sculpted into it, which is just really going to bring out a nice effect over that. I'm also just trying to avoid the eyes with this as well, because I want to keep them super bright and menacing looking. And then once all that's dry, we are completed with our Gnoll archer. And I think it looks really nice here, and just with adding those little spots on to the back of his neck, which is really added in just a lot of extra detail on there that I notice a lot of Gnolls have in their artwork, giving it just those different colours of leather brown and the fur brown, the monster brown, and all that has really made a big difference in varying up those brown colours instead of it all getting muddled together. But with that, I hope this has been a useful thing for you. I hope you've enjoyed me painting the miniature, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.